Hello, heathens! How are you guys doing? Today we're here with Godless Cranium, and we're here for an interview. We're going to be talking about his religious past and just in general what led him up to this point in his life as far as like religion and his beliefs go. If you're not subscribed to Godless Cranium, you best go and do that now. He's got an excellent channel. He's got a much farther reach than I do because his content is a lot better. But you know, go subscribe to him right now. But anyways, hey there, GC, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Just woke up, but you get sleepy GC today.
Nice. Yeah, see, I'm used to getting up like at about 5 a.m. during the week. And so like, yeah, me getting up at about 8 or so this morning was a pretty good sleep in for me.
Well, I usually stay up till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start off with, what role did religion play in like your early life, like as a child and on into, I guess, your teenage years?
Well, my family was fairly religious. Most of it still is, but my mom and dad aren't. Well, my dad's passed away, but they both kind of just gradually lost their religiosity. My mom's still religious, like as far as she'll talk about God and heaven and all that kind of stuff, but she doesn't go to church. As far as me, when I was a child, my parents were elders in the church, so I grew up Presbyterian. I pretty much believed what they told me because, well, I was a kid. My dad used to buy me National Geographics, and he did pretty much up until he died. Yearly, he would pay for a subscription for me. And I started to notice that the things that they were saying in the National Geographic didn't match with what I was being told in Sunday school. So I started to ask questions specifically about Noah's flood, or the worldwide flood, and I eventually got kicked out of Sunday school and told that I was a disruption to the class, and that I was filling the other kids' heads with bad ideas, and so I had to go sit with my parents in the pews and listen to the priest drone on. But I pretty much I went through the same phase that I imagine most atheists go through that were religious, where they they believe it and then they start to doubt. I'm not sure if I ever, really fully embraced all of what I was being told. But I did believe in like Jesus and that he died and resurrected and all that kind of stuff. And then, then I gradually turned into an agnostic, or what I thought of as an agnostic. So, I don't know, we could talk about that. I know you're not a big fan of that label. But I adopted that label, and then I gradually moved into atheism and then anti-theism.
Okay. First, going back a little bit, can you tell me like what separates Presbyterians from like the rest of Christianity? Like what makes Presbyterians as far as their faith goes?
I think it's a little less fire and brimstone. They preach less about hell and things like that. It's just kind of like the emphasis of what they kind of teach, rather than really big differences.
All right,
if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, coming from I'm from North Alabama. I'm in the Bible Belt of the United States, and so talking about hell and how exactly what you got to do to get there was a pretty popular topic. So
yeah.
As far as the agnosticism thing goes, it's not that I don't like the label. I'm fine with the label, and I'm fine with people being in that transition period where they just don't know. That on the Dawkins scale, he represents that as pure agnosticism, and I think it's perfectly fine for people not to know. But I think that where I draw a contention is when people say like like Steve McRae says that I can't be an agnostic atheist. Like that's not a tenable position, and I would disagree. I'm fine if people want to label themselves as an agnostic about things, but I would still push the issue that doesn't really answer what you believe. It's still about what you know. So, I mean, it's not that I have a problem with it, but I'm fine with people going through that phase, and I think that's a really good phase to go through. I think it's crucial in the deconversion from religion. So you said that you were in Sunday school asking questions because of the National Geographic and everything that you were being exposed to by your dad. I'm kind of curious, like, do you remember any specific questions that really elicited like those kind of like responses?
Yeah, well, I asked probably really childish questions, but I mean, questions such as, there's lions and giraffes on this ark. Why wouldn't the lions? What did the lions eat? Why wouldn't they try to eat the giraffes? That kind of thing. How big was this boat? Which is actually outlined in the Bible, but I still didn't get an answer. Just questions like that. Stuff that just didn't kind of mesh with that, or how did Noah get all of the animals? Because rhinos, for instance, there's no rhinos in North America unless you go to a zoo. But I mean, naturally, right? So how did he get all those animals? Where did they come from? Like, did he travel around to place to get them? Because it doesn't say that in the Bible. Those kinds of things.
Okay. When would you say, like, about what age did you start, like, I guess take up like agnosticism as a way to define what you thought about like God and whatnot?
Probably say late teens, like 18, 19, although I was doing a lot of things that I wasn't really thinking about. I was doing typical 18, 19-year-old things. So I wasn't really sitting around thinking about God too much. But, there would be time. I've always been a big reader, which I guess is another thing my dad introduced me to. So I remember he bought me like Choose Your Own Adventure books when I was a kid. And I went through those like crazy. And then I just kind of has always been something that's part of me. So, I would read about stuff like that or about history and stuff like that. And, gradually it just kind of, I guess one day I just kind of realized, like, wait a second, I don't really believe this crap. But, is there still a God? So I went through a phase where I looked at Islam and a little bit into Buddhism and, spiritual stuff, I guess, like New Agey stuff, where I would, kind of explore it and see if it made any sense, and none of it made any sense to me. So all of it had kind of holes in it, even, Buddhism, which, some parts make sense, but I mean, it's still got some of the wooey kind of stuff to it. And so it just didn't make sense to me. So.
Okay. Did you have a lot of religious friends at the time, or were you kind of more of a loner?
Well, I've always been a kind of a loner. When I was in school, though, I had lots of friends, but I had friends more because it was like, a collection of friends, more than because I was super close to. I was maybe super close to 4 or 5 of them. But I've always been kind of a loner. I like to do things by myself. I'm fine spending time by myself and not having to be around somebody all the time. So I guess I'm a little bit of both. I can be really social, or I can be more introverted, which is probably my natural state.
Okay. Well, the reason why I asked was I just didn't know, like, when you started questioning things and when you would bring up these uncomfortable questions, like, I was just curious how your friends would have reacted or did react, like, when you brought those up, or if you even brought them up at all.
Oh yeah, no, I never really brought it up. I would bring it up. I still don't really bring it up unless, somebody brings it up, right? Like if I'm at a family gathering and somebody says something really dumb about, in a religious context, then I would challenge that, right? But I don't bring it up naturally. I do that in my videos, but people can choose to watch it or not watch it, right?
Yeah. I always love the argument of like, why are you doing this? And stop. Like the biggest thing with my Facebook page has been, get this godless crap off of my news feed. It's like, don't you know how Facebook works?
Yeah, I barely know how Facebook works. I'm not on it very often, and I've always kind of hated it secretly.
Yeah, I found that the crowd that's on Facebook is almost mutually exclusive from the crowd on like YouTube and other social platforms. It's kind of odd how that works.
Yeah, and Facebook arguments just don't work very well. They just I don't know, because I read a lot of things on Facebook that make me kind of angry, and then I want to respond and argue with it, but then I'm like, I just kind of restrain myself because it's just really no point.
Yeah. Well, like when you started questioning things and you started, not really knowing what you believed about God and whatnot, and then you finally, became an atheist or took up that label. Did you really tell anybody?
Yeah, probably. I was writing about religion long before I did videos on YouTube. So I would write about what I thought about religion, and if you could somehow go back in time and read those, you would see the transition between kind of an agnosticism, an agnostic-y, atheist-y kind of worldview to what I am now, right? Like you would see a gradual transition of me being more, I guess, more challenging towards religious views than I was when I first started. So yeah.
Okay. Like, what was the reaction of people, like, whenever you would tell them, that you were an atheist or anything like that?
Well, my family just kind of tolerates it. Most of them probably don't even know, but I know, my uncle does, because he said we were at a party, or like a family gathering party thing, and he said something like, "I can prove that Jesus was real or rose from the dead," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, really? Well, go ahead then." And we ended up getting into like a debate, and then he ran away, although he was drinking, and I wasn't, so it wasn't really a fair contest. And then he went to my mom and said, "Your son has really strange views on religion." So that's, the worst kind of reaction that I get from my family is more like, I don't know, kind of like I'm strange or I'm weird, which I'm kind of used to. Yeah. So that's fine. In my writing, when I wrote a lot, my writing was really popular. I was on, what was it? Can't remember the site now, but it was like one of the larger affiliates, kind of like a bloggy thing, but you could have your own kind of page. And so there's millions of users on it. And I was like, I think, rated the 4th most popular page on their thing. So I was pretty happy with that at the time. So yeah, I guess that's always been kind of well received, I think. And I think like a lot of religious people would read kind of like my YouTube videos. I think that my writing kind of drew in religious people as well. So they would actually read what I was writing, whereas a lot of atheist stuff they would kind of avoid. So I kind of strive to do that in my videos as well, to make it so it's not something that is super offensive to religious people, because I really want them to listen to my message as well. Right.
And that's obviously a very good strategy. I mean, you have an enormous reach on YouTube, and I don't think you really push your videos like on Facebook or Twitter or anything, do you?
I don't push my videos anywhere. I don't know how Facebook works very well, so I just kind of fumble my way through there. I use that more to connect with subs. So some of them will message me and stuff through there. Twitter, I used a long time ago, and I stopped using it for a long time, and then I just kind of went back to it since I started YouTube. And I use that more for DMs, like talking to other creators and stuff like that, than I do actually sending tweets. And I don't usually tweet out my own stuff. I usually tweet out other people's stuff if I find it super interesting.
Okay.
It's probably a bad strategy, though. So don't use it. If you're a creator, don't use my strategy.
Well, no, I mean, obviously, I mean, what you're doing is working because I mean, your videos get a lot of attention. So I think you got a really good thing going for you. But back on to you know, your transition to atheism.
Nobody's more surprised about that than me.
But back onto your transition, I'm wondering, was there any certain thing that convinced you to label yourself as an atheist, or that, you know, that there's no evidence for God? Like, was there any certain thing that did it, or was it just a long process where at the end you just concluded?
I think ultimately it was a long process, but at the same time, I think I like watching debates, and you know, I'll read, and I still do this. I still read, like, you know, atheist material, and then I'll read, you know, Christian material or religious material. And I've always found that the religious material they don't have very good arguments. Like, it's not convincing. And if you see, I mean, there's very few debates that I've seen where the religious person comes out looking better than the atheist person in terms of arguments, right? So I've seen, I think, maybe one or two that the religious person I thought did a really, you know, a better job than the atheist at arguing. Not necessarily that their points were better, but that they got them across better. And so I guess was convincing to me, that their arguments were better. I'm not really an emotional person, so I don't really base my stuff on emotions, on, you know, what feels better. At least I try not to. I guess I'm human, so I do at some point, but I try not to do that.
No, I think that's a very good strategy. I mean, because if I've learned anything from the very end of last month, it's that emotion takes over and overshadows any kind of good points that you could hope to make. So yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah. Although my girlfriend calls me a robot because when we argue, I don't cry or make any kind of emotion. Like, if she makes an emotional argument, I'm like, that's not really an argument. This is why, blah, blah, blah. She's like, you do this on YouTube. And I'm pretty much the same on YouTube as I am in real life. So that's pretty much me.
Oh, well, I mean, that's the best way to be, is just being you. Like, you know, a lot of people try to put forth this like character or facade, and, you know, if like acting is kind of your thing and you like acting, I mean, that could work out for you. But I mean, for most people, at least in our niche group, like, acting a certain way isn't, you know, really part of the repertoire usually.
Yeah, I guess the only difference is that, you know, if I were doing it like how you do it live, and how I do it, I script it out and I think it out, and I go, you know, I do the research right, you know, before I actually make the video. So I guess the version that's on YouTube is me if I had time to like sit down and think about it before I actually answered a question. Right. So more polished me, I guess.
Me, I just try to entertain and laugh. Like, that's what I try to do.
Yeah, I tried. Before I started this channel, I had a gaming channel, and for some of that I would ad lib kind of thing, but I say a lot. So, and I would notice it while I was listening to the video back. I'd be like, oh, I wish I would have scripted that. So scripting takes a lot more effort, but for me it works better. For other people, they're great at ad-libbing, like yourself, and I've seen other YouTubers that are really good at it. It's just not something I'm good at.
Well, I don't know. For me, at least, as far as my content goes, you know, I was at a point where I was trying to like script out, and I did for a long time. I scripted out my videos, but like I wasn't getting a lot of traction on them. So one day I was just like, well, you know, here's a video I want to respond to. I will look up the points, and I'll just generally gain that knowledge, and then I'll watch it and I'll give my commentary on it with, you know, with just having that knowledge. And, you know, sometimes it works out for me pretty well. Other times it fucks me in the ass pretty hard. So, you know.
Well, there's always different ways of approaching things, right? Like,
yeah,
that's why I think diversity is good as far as like, like, you know, if say like, I don't know, somebody like Christopher Hitchens or Dusty Smith, just say Cult of Dusty here on YouTube, are a lot more inflammatory when they're talking about religion than somebody like myself. So, but that reaches some people, and my message would reach other people, right? Whereas, you know, their message wouldn't. So, you know, I think it's good that there's different people and different ways of transmitting your message, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think having you know, all of the newer YouTubers that are coming up in the atheist scene, and not really displacing some of the older voices, but you know, just really having, you know, that wide range of different tactics, it can only help reach more people.
Well, I think a lot of the older ones, I mean, there's exceptions like Logic and stuff, aren't really talking about religion anymore. They're talking about, you know, feminism and anti-feminism and social issues.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Sorry, not that religion. Religion is also a social issue, I think, but they're talking about different ones.
Yeah, right. And I mean, I think that's totally fine. But I have noticed that a lot of the older channels have gotten bored with the atheist content and moved on with, you know, other things. Because I know Repzion, he used to do a lot of atheist content. Now he doesn't really do that much anymore.
Some of them might be boredom, but I also think that you'll reach I don't know, like a wall in subscribers, right? Like once you get to a certain level, there's going to be, you know, if you have an atheist channel and you're against religion, there's going to be a large percentage of religious people that aren't going to watch your stuff. So you kind of wall yourself off from those subscribers. So I think that's part of it as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's
cynical though.
Well, I mean, there's also that very divisive line within our own atheist community that has really had the light put on it recently. And, you know, I find, you know, drawing that line in the atheist community, I mean, it doesn't help. I mean, when dividing us like that doesn't help at all. And I don't understand why some people want to apply some kind of moral code like to the atheist movement in general, and then, you know, say like, oh, don't support them because of X reasons, which are against our reasons, and all this other stuff. Like, I don't know, that just seems to conflate the whole conversation to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of divided on that. Like, I agree. I don't think atheism has anything to do with a specific ideology. But I can see why atheists in general would want to have some kind of, you know, moral structure or moral philosophy that they can turn to and point to and say that's, you know, a lot of them use humanism for example, right? And, you know, they'll point to that and say, you know, that's better than religion, and this is what I would, you know, subscribe to, kind of thing. So I can see why they would want to do that. But yeah. I mean, I think it's two separate conversations. I think they get them mixed up, right? Like, you know, atheism is one conversation about, you know, whether you think God is real, right? And then the other part is like moral philosophy, which is a whole different separate conversation.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree that they're getting convoluted and they're getting mixed up, and you know, they're trying to merge those two things. And I really wish that wouldn't happen, but at the same time, there's a lot of people pushing for that. But
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, yeah, I was just agreeing with you.
Okay.
I've seen them, like, you know, the Shives versus Armored Skeptic and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I try not to. When I first started my channel, I was kind of dabbling in different subjects, but I've decided that I'm just not going to delve into that in videos and stuff like that. It's just, it's toxic to me. And
well, no, I do agree that the entire conversation's toxic, and it only soils people, you know, and espousing any certain position other than God doesn't exist. You're liable to lose support from somebody just on the basis of, well, I don't agree with these people on this. And they're like, well, bye. I enjoy, like, had somebody say, enjoy lossing a sub. It's like, okay, I really don't mind at that point.
yeah. I'm more about the conversation, right? Like, I like having conversations with people, whether I agree with them or not. So and maybe because I'm not, like I said, not very emotional, I don't really take what they say to heart. Like as far as like emotionally, you know, if they call me an asshole, just say I wouldn't. It doesn't really bother me. It makes me laugh sometimes. So I like listening to the conversation, but I don't like the whole aspect of when people try to shut other people down and say they're not allowed to do this, or they're not allowed to speak, or they're Nazis because of this, right? Or they're cucks because of this, right? Like that whole thing to me is just toxic and needs to stop.
Yeah, I'm let me see. Let me make sure I can recant this perfectly. I'm a Nazi, white supremacist, rape apologist, I don't know, a bigot. I'm like all of these things right now to one particular group of people. And like huh?
Oh, I was just gonna say there's somebody on Twitter who keeps track of all the things I've been called. They have like a like a list. It's pretty funny. It's like breaker of chains, raper of the naive.
It sounds like one of those really long titles they use in Game of Thrones, right?
That's exactly what it. Yeah, I might actually use it in one of my videos. I'll have to see if I can find it. It's hilarious. So whenever he tweets it out sometimes, and like when he adds something to it, and it's just funny.
Back on to kind of the original conversation. I'm wondering, like, if you could look back and kind of, give yourself some kind of advice, like a person that's questioning their faith or questioning what they already believe in. Like, what's some good advice you could give to that, like, person that's questioning?
I would say I think questioning is good. Like I even now I question my atheism, for instance. So I think it's always good to challenge yourself, and always good to look at the other side of it, look at their point of view from their point of view. I try hard to do that even with my channel. Like I try to understand what they're saying in their videos and why they would believe that. And so I think it's good that they're questioning, and I would just say continue to do what you're doing, right? Like continue to delve into why you believe stuff, because that's what I think, overarching, atheism is like a subset of what I think is important, is that, we question things, we question everything, right? Like, why do you do this? Like, I remember, it's kind of off the rails a little bit, but I remember one time, my girlfriend was doing something she was washing dishes or something, but she was doing it in a way that would waste time, right? Like you could have done the same job better at less time, right? And I forget exactly what it was she was doing, but I said, why are you doing it that way? And she put down her dish and she said, because that's how my grandma did it, and that's how she taught me. And so she'd never questioned it, right? And I think we do that with a lot of things, right? Like including religion, right? We just do them because that's what we were taught, instead of actually thinking about why we do them.
No, I think so too. I think common knowledge, or what a lot of people say is just, oh, you should just know this and not question it. I think that's a very bad kind of road to go down, because then you shut yourself off from new ideas, and I don't think that's ever a good thing.
I don't think so either. Listen and believe is not a good idea ever.
Never. So what kind of advice would you have for somebody that just realized that they are an atheist?
I don't know. I personally, and this is just from my point of view, I personally believe that it's important that we're vocal about not believing. Obviously, I try to follow that through my videos, but I guess it's kind of like, I don't know, what was that hashtag, normalize atheism? I kind of believe in that kind of concept, as far as I don't understand why, and if you're not going to be vocal about it, I don't know why people would criticize the people that are vocal about it. Because if I think that something is based on a lie, and there's 80% of your population that bases their lives around this lie, why wouldn't you challenge it? And if you're not going to challenge it because maybe you're too busy or it doesn't interest you, which I can understand, why would you tell other people that are challenging it that they're being stupid? I don't understand that kind of mentality. And maybe it's because I like the conversation, and I think that those kind of conversations have to happen. And I think religion has kind of, flourished because we've allowed it to go so long without critical questions being asked about it, or examination. We've just kind of like, oh, we have to give that thing respect, and so we just don't question it, right? I think that's in any area. I think that's a bad policy.
Yeah, I think don't question is a very bad policy to have in anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I guess, in all of the, research, I guess, that you've done and whatnot, what is the worst religious argument that you've come across?
Oof.
I'm asking the tough questions here, okay?
That is a tough question, because I've heard so many that are really bad, and I'm kind of drawing a blank. They're just, I don't know. I think I could tell you what I think is the best argument, which I think is maybe, I think one of the last arguments that has to be debunked is the moral question. I see a lot of apologists using that the most. I think is that they're, without God, there's no morality and there's no objective morality. And I think it's uncomfortable for atheists to admit that morality is subjective, and so there's no right and wrong, cut and dry answer. I think that's an uncomfortable admission, right? So I think religious people can win people over using that argument sometimes. Bad arguments, I don't know. There's usually just the something from nothing thing. I think a lot of times they straw man atheism and just say that, because you're an atheist, you must believe this, which I always think is a bad argument. And I think it's bad practice to try to start out an argument that way, right? Like, I mean, they should be trying to give you the best possible argument and then take that down, right? Not straw man them into, because like we said before, atheism doesn't have anything to do with what I believe as how the universe came to be. That's just a separate conversation.
Right. I think that they convolute it though, like as far as
Wait, I did hear one the other day, probably a couple of weeks ago. That made me laugh, and it was words. Somehow words proved God because we can make words.
I remember somebody. There was a video that I did a response to where the guy was like, "You're using words right now. That's proof God exists." And I'm just sitting there like, yeah, motherfucker, what?
Yeah. The only thing that flashed through my head was like the argument would be like words though. So that one might be one of the top ones of really bad arguments.
Yeah, I would say that is a pretty bad argument right there. Well, Godless Cranium, I really appreciate you joining me today for this interview. If anybody hasn't subscribed to him yet, definitely go down there and subscribe to him. Is there anything that you want to leave people with today?
No. Besides, thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun, and I hope we can do it again.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've got to get you, Paula, Gia, and all these other people back on for follow-up interviews and just general collaborations. Because, like, we did a collaboration together, and I thought that turned out really well.
Yeah, maybe because of my introversion. I don't do too many collaborations, but when I do, the people that I've worked with so far have been really, really cool. You and Holy Kool-Aid and some of the others that have had guest videos on my channel and stuff. They've all been really nice, really cool people.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to work with you again there, Godless Cranium. Again, if you people haven't subscribed to him, why not? You need to. He's got awesome content. It's different than my content. It's got a lot less emotion in it, but I mean that he pulls that out, as we've discussed here, and just has the information, which is good. That's something that we need. So I know that you're going to keep on growing. He's already surpassed me. And so, you know, really, he's doing me the favor right now. And I really appreciate that.